Welcome to another episode of Point and Click, a Telltale podcast. I am Jordan C. Johnson.
And I am Adam Razak.
And today we're talking about the second episode of Tales from the Borderlands Season 1 called Atlas Mugged. Now, I know you really like this series by the end. Would you say that each episode gets progressively better for you?
Well, of course, I'd have to like play through the rest of them to really
Sure.
have an updated opinion. But the last time I played them, I'd say this one is probably my second favorite out of the
Really?
five. Yeah, for now.
Interesting. Because I gotta say, I did not like this episode this time.
Really?
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with this. The whole time I was playing it, I had a real problem with the jokiness of it, where I just kind of felt like I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy or something, and not in a good way, because I don't like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I tend to have a problem with the whole sort of jokey, flippant way the Marvel movies treat everything that happens in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that attitude was pervading this episode a lot, in a way that really detracted from my enjoyment of it, where everything is so ironic and detached and jokey, like just even in little moments, like when Loaderbot is he's getting swarmed by the bat things, and he's just like he just says not cool, or how or then they cut a minute later and it's Vaughn saying, this is not awesome, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is not good writing. This is not this is not the level I would want from Telltale, and I get that this was a bit of a departure for them, where they're trying to push the humor thing a bit more than they have in any other, well, a lot more than any other series, and I don't know if that's their forte.
I think it is. I think,
Okay.
Especially with them being in the Borderlands property, because I think this whole sarcastic, jokey, snarky kind of thing is Borderlands. I think that is the humor of it. I don't necessarily think it's at its core a problem, because I think that whole attitude carries itself from all 5 episodes. I think the whole time it's there. And I get that if you don't like it from the get-go, I mean, I understand that, but I think I don't know, to me, all this humor that's in this, I see it in the first episode and every other episode after this.
I think it's more pronounced for me in this than the first, because this episode had less elements I like than the first, whereas the first had all these, like we talked about. I like the scale of the first episode. I like this sort of space opera atmosphere it creates, and it builds to this big, interesting action climax, and it's kind of like a self-contained little narrative, and it feels like a movie. It feels really cinematic and large. And this episode, I don't really get that from, and I start to, some of the limitations and what I think are bad writing starts seeping in, and so it's just, there's less there to satisfy me, and all the stuff that I don't like just kind of comes to the fore. For example, of what I mean about the limitations, there's a moment early on when Vasquez comes down to attack Reese and Vaughn, and basically try to kill them. And there's, at the end of that scene, it plays out where you can, make his gun blow up or whatever you do, and he's on the ground injured, and they just run away. They don't give you, that just to me seems like contrived writing, because the logical thing is well, you have a very easy chance to kill Vasquez and be done with this whole thing right there. But because the episode wants to have him come back and he needs to be there for the end of the episode again, they don't give you that option. They just make you run away with no choice, when it doesn't really make any sense in the moment of that scene. So it's just, that to me is just that's just weak writing. You could have written this in a stronger way, where I'm not just seeing the contrivance and being frustrated by my lack of agency.
I think that particular scene, with them running away, I think that doesn't bother me, because it's in keeping with, so even with a lot of these characters where you can't have agency over them, I feel like there is a through line of some specified personality with every one of them, like Bigby is still going to be like this, tough, hard-boiled detective. And then in like a lot of the Game of Thrones series, it's going to be like this, either like they're the coward or brave, stuff like that. With Reese and Vaughn, I think throughout the whole series, at least like the first 3-4 episodes, there is this through line of cowardice and like this notion that they are way in over their head with what they're doing. So I think like with Reese being able to manipulate the car and run over Vaughn, I think that's just him getting lucky, and it's almost like he can't believe it. So, but when like Vaughn gets back up or like they're done, they're just like, fuck it, let's go. And I think that to me is in keeping with Reese and Vaughn, like how they were portrayed in the first episode. Even if you do like all this badass stuff with Reese and Vaughn in the first episode, there is still this sense of them being like these really, really small figures in this larger overall game, and it's them trying to navigate this game. Like that's the whole series. But I think them running away is just a small little thing of that.
Right, but there's a way to do that without giving me the what seems like a clear-cut opportunity to just end Vasquez right there. And there's a way to have them, because that doesn't make them feel like small cogs. Like I get what you're saying. Like that is a cool idea where these characters are just in over their heads and they're overwhelmed, and they're just they're trying to survive in this game that is way bigger than them, right? And that's cool. But that scene does not convey that. That scene conveys the opposite, because clearly right here you have just outsmarted Vasquez and you have a very, very clear opportunity to kill him. Like there's no reason not to. He's right there. He's defenseless. He's on the ground. Like there's no reason in that scene. In that scene, your character is not is being overwhelmed because you just came out on top there. You know what I mean? Like you just hacked into his gun through this technology. You came out on top and you overpowered him. So to have him run away, that just seems like incongruous writing. I mean, in one moment you're defeating him, and the next moment you're supposed to be a small cog in a machine and you're overwhelmed and you're running away. Like what the better way to do that scene, if you want to keep the the whole small overwhelmed character thing, is to not give you that opportunity, to have you like sort of maybe kind of fumble your way out of the situation, almost like in a Coen Brothers kind of way, where just like this series of happenstance occurs and you just happen to escape from the scene barely, and then you get chased and whatever. That okay, fine. If they do it that way, then I don't have a complaint anymore. That would be great, and you're not interfering with the agency I feel over that character. But that's what I'm saying. This just seems like bad writing. It doesn't really work in either context. Like, if you're going to do it this way, if you're going to give me the choice to overpower him and escape, you should give me that choice and let me decide how I want to build that character,
I still think it's in keeping, though, like them just running away like that. I mean, sure, like bad writing, I can see the argument for that, but I feel like because in that moment, like they're about to dig their own graves, and then Jack just comes in just automatically, like he's not even there initially. It's not until like Vaughn, I think he like smacks him in the face or like headbutts him or something. That's when Jack wakes up, and Jack like starts to like mentally and physically take over Reese with the whole like, I've upgraded your eye, now you can really like get the upper hand here. And he does that, and he has this moment of like, wow, I actually did it. It's like this look on their face. And then when like Vaughn starts to get back up, they're like, oh shit, and then they just start to run. I think like with him in that moment, like him with the car hitting Vaughn, it's like a brief moment, like very, very brief moment of like, I have the upper hand. But Reese is not ready for that. And I don't think he's been ready for that kind of moment throughout like the whole like the first episode and then this episode.
But then that begs the question again, like, we talk about so much, is in a role-playing game where you are making choices and developing how you want to play that character, how much agency should you have over what they want that character to be and how their development of him is laid out, and how the player wants to develop him? You know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying. I still think they could have been written better. I think the way they do it is awkward and distracting. But I get your point about it being in keeping with Reese as a character up to that point. But that's only Reese as a character through a certain lens. And I understand that that's how clearly that's how Telltale is trying to build him. But again, in a game like this, where does that end and where should your choice begin? Because for me, all I got out of that scene was there's not enough. It's distracting to me. It pulls me out of the narrative because I can't do what I want to do. And like I said before, I don't think it's a very well executed way of keeping Reese being this overwhelmed character who doesn't really know what he's doing. Like I don't really think it works on either level.
I think with like if they had given me the option to like run him over again with that car, I think that would honestly like take me out of it more than them just running away. Like running away, they make you run away, and I get that, but it doesn't. I feel like even though they don't have me like directly influencing him after the car hit, with them running away, that seems to be like, okay, that is like in keeping with the through line of the character. If they had given me that option to like run him over again and like kill him, I think that would ultimately just make it like feel a little bit more like, I don't know how to put it, like it would betray that through line, and then it would just completely break the character in that moment, and then any other moments afterwards where it's like Reese is a coward, where it's like, well, no, he's not, because clearly he can control the car again and run Vaughn over. It's like, why doesn't he just do that with any other thing he comes across?
But shouldn't that be the choice, though? Like, that takes you out of how you're playing Reese, but what if somebody else is playing him differently and doesn't get that choice at all? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to play it that way, but to not even allow you, like, and I think maybe it is a little different because you clearly chose the car option and I chose the gun option, so these may play it a little differently, where if I imagine if you choose the car, you just make it hit him and he just kind of gets incapacitated and you run away.
I didn't even know you controlled I didn't even know you could control the gun.
Yeah, see, so what I did is I chose the gun, and you make the gun like overcharge, basically, and blow up in his hands and knock him down. So it's not like you're right. It feels different to me. It's not like with the car. It's almost like you're just kind of making it go, and he gets incapacitated. And you just run for your life. But this, it's like the gun blows up. He falls down, and you have a few like moments there where you're just like looking at him, incapacitated. The gun's like gone. He has no power anymore. I'm like, why am I running away? We're armed. He's not. It makes no sense.
See and that brings up the trouble of like sometimes evaluating these like choice-based games, where like I don't feel like that with the whole, even like with the car, them running them over and then running away, or running Vasquez over and then Reese and Vaughn running away, I think that's fine. I don't know, even like the gun, like thinking about it in my head with them blowing up and like seeing like they actually got away with doing something like that and then running away, I like that image in my head still doesn't irk me like past like them removing the agency out of it.
Right, but I mean, again, I think that's just because we're like viewing the characters and playing them differently, you know? Like,
sure.
That scene makes sense with how you're looking at Reese. Doesn't make so much sense with how like I'm playing Reese and I'm playing the game. You know what I mean? And that I feel like is the flaw in a lot of these Telltale games, as we talk about so much. It's just, it shouldn't just be one. It shouldn't just work for one approach to the character. You know what I mean? Because if you're doing that, then why bother even putting these choices in at all? Like, just make them cutscenes. It feels like a hollow token if you can't actually affect the way that character builds.
I think it doesn't bother me too, just because I like the scene so much.
Yeah,
as well.
I think that's fair.
Like, and any excuse not to kill off Patrick Warburton is fine with me, because I love Vasquez.
I hate Vasquez. I mean,
I hate
Patrick
him, but
Warburton
I love.
Is great, but
I think Patrick Warburton is like one of the best parts of this series.
Yeah. I still would have killed him immediately if given the opportunity.
I like Vasquez too much. I think the biggest, if I were to bring up any problems I have with this episode, is I don't think the action is anywhere near as good as the first episode. And that, like, the weird thing is, like, this is the episode that really, like, finally won me over. Like beginning with the whole, like, again, with, like, the whole, like, eye removal thing, which I think is hilariously gross.
Oh.
Which
okay. I like couldn't even watch that scene. Like, I was like, this they're like I'm fine with like gore and everything, but like certain things on like the body I just can't.
Yeah.
And like this is so like realistically disgusting, and I was like, oh,
Sure.
I cannot. It was, I had to like just look away. It was brutal.
See, like I think like I'm more like bothered by like wrists slitting like those, but like
really?
like there's a scene in I think it's John Wick 2 where like a character like on screen like cuts her wrists open, and I'm like, oh my god, like I can't even like look at that.
Yeah.
It's just gross. But like the eye thing, I found it more just funny. It's gross, obviously. Like it makes me cringe thinking about it, but I think just in the way like the dark humor that they played in with Reese screaming and then them accidentally like jabbing the spork into the eye and just like splitting it in half. It's like, I think like just that goofy tone that it takes initially, I think that was like, okay, you're starting to warm me up to this. But then when they have that like fucking incredible like title sequence where it like the music kicks in at the right time and like you have that slow motion bit where they're flying out of the back of the car, and I love that. And that's where I remember it, like that's when I finally was like, okay, now I am liking this. Because you gotta remember, like the whole first episode, like half of it, I was like, this is not, I'm not feeling it. And then the second half was like pretty good, and I really liked it after that. But still, like overall, I was like, I don't know about this series. But it's like that moment is when I was like, okay, now they're winning me over with this.
I don't know. I don't know. That scene is, I mean, it is definitely goofy, and they're playing it for laughs, like they play everything for laughs. But man, it is so fucking like sadistically disgusting that it's like, ugh.
I don't know. Compared to some of the other,
it's a personal. I mean, it's like a personal thing with just what they choose to focus on in terms of violence. But yeah, I had trouble with that.
I don't know. I find the whole the eye bashing bit in Walking Dead season 2 much more like personally disturbing than, because of how angry it is, like just bashing Carver's eye out. It's like, oh my god.
Right. Well, I think also there's a difference in tone. Like in Walking Dead, they're trying to be serious and disturbing and ultra brutal, and make you have to just kind of live in that moment. Where this, they just play it so much for laughs that for me it starts to become even more uncomfortable because they're just so like flippant and upfront with it, and that's just like. Just I don't know, like I don't mean to be like all like moralistic about anything. I'm not even going there. I'm just like personally, it was just so disgusting for me that it was like very unsettling to watch.
It definitely walks that fine line between like what not like what I can accept, but what I find like funny. Because I find it if they like want to stick with it and have it be like that, and they're not like wink wink nudge nudge at the camera, and it's not like they're personally enjoying doing this, like the humor I find in them, like, they're just as grossed out as like I am watching it, and I find their pain like identifiable, and I think that in turn makes it funnier for me.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, where it's not like they're like yuck yuck, let's take the eye out. It's just more like
they kind of are.
Not Fiona, not Sasha. Sasha's like it's funny too, like Sasha trying to like ease Fiona into doing it and how terrible of a job she is. Like that I find funny too, because that in turn adds to the discomfort of those characters going through it.
Yeah,
which I think is fucking hilarious. I love it.
You know what I did like about this episode?
What?
Scooter.
Yeah.
Scooter's probably the best character in this game.
Yeah. God damn it. Well, he and I didn't even remember that he was in like the actual series. Like I never knew that.
Oh, like the regular Borderlands games?
Yeah,
I didn't know that either.
They teased when this was like first coming out that it would actually have an impact on Borderlands 3 or whenever the fuck the next one is going to come out. So it's like to see a character from the series like actually have like a prominent role in this. That's like, okay, I can definitely respect that they're just like going for it, that they have enough confidence to put well-established characters in like not starring but prominent supporting roles in this series. And Scooter is awesome. I love Scooter.
Yeah, he's a great character.
I also like the two goons that come after them when they go
Yeah.
to Felix's house. They're funny. I like that they have their own, like him, the one guy with the hair, especially how insecure he is about it,
Yeah.
which I think is very funny. And I love that you could just mess his whole hair up, his face up. I love it.
And there's a scene where you are put in a situation and you're allowed the opportunity to escape from that, but you feel the urgency in a way that for me didn't make me feel like, why aren't we, doing more, like I was having a problem with in that other scene, because there's so much urgency and it's so quick and it's so just, you're taking advantage of what you have at your fingertips and just barely getting out.
Sure.
That's like a well done scene. That's a well done escape scene that didn't take me out of the character,
Well, I think like Fiona, like what Fiona and Sasha are like completely different from Reese and Vaughn in that sense. Like again, there's that through line of like both Sasha and Fiona know what they're doing a lot better than Reese and Vaughn do, which I think like both escape scenes work. I just think for different reasons, and like neither of which really take me out of it from a character perspective on either of them.
I think for me, I mean, I hate to keep harping on this, but like the Vasquez scene for me, it's really just it's like your standard sort of annoying slasher movie moment where the character incapacitates the killer and is given a chance to completely be done with them and just kill them right there and end everything, but they don't. Like as a dumb contrivance, they turn their back or they walk away or they think it's over or whatever. And like every viewer who has ever seen a slasher movie is just like, this is so stupid. Why wouldn't you kill him right there? And I feel that that Vasquez moment played the same for me. Like he's clearly trying to kill you. He's not going to stop trying to kill you, and you have a chance right now to end this, but you just don't. And it doesn't feel like there's any reason in the narrative for them not to. It's just they just don't. Whereas versus this Fiona thing, these are new characters. You're not as invested in them. You don't know how ruthless they're going to be, and also you don't really even have the opportunity to kill them. You just have to get out of there as quickly as you can.
Sure.
So that scene makes sense to me.
I can see that. No, yeah, okay. Like comparing it to like a slasher movie, because that does piss me off about a lot of those movies.
Right.
But I think like with more like the slasher comparison, it's like even the goofier ones still have that like sense of, like bloodshed and horror to it. Whereas like this is just more of a straight up comedy, and them running away I think is just like, well, there's that comedy angle to it, which I think softens significantly softens the annoyance I could probably get from a contrivance like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it takes me out of it, but I can see your point.
So as far as like the action in this episode as well, like I like the beginning with the whole car chase against the giant monster thing. I'm not really crazy about the whole Athena chase. To me, it's just kind of like it's there. It doesn't really have any. And again, like I think it's very different depending on what you do in the action. It can end either like really like like okay, or it could end like in a really interesting, funny way. Like how did your chase play out with Athena?
I mean, I don't remember anything really of note happening. We just kind of got away, and the loader bot threw her across town.
So, if you know how you have that option where, like, Reese and Vaughn can go to where Fiona and Sasha are? Like, that's the ending that plays out, where, like, Loaderbot just grabs her and then swings her halfway across town.
Right.
But if you go to the other area, if you just meet up at Hollow Point or wherever... is it Hollow Point? I think it's Hollow Point. No. It's
Haven, or whatever?
Yeah. Old Haven. There we go.
Yeah.
If you go to Old Haven, like Athena's girlfriend will actually appear, and because she's hiding her assassin double life from her girlfriend, so she'll like stop there dead in her tracks, and you can actually kind of like like play along, like, oh yeah, she's not hunting us, and you can actually take Athena's shield in that moment, but she can't do anything about it because her girlfriend's right there, and she doesn't want to reveal what she's actually doing. So it's like this funny little thing where you can just fuck with Athena like that, like this badass, powerful assassin, and then in this moment of vulnerability of her like trying not to hurt the person she loves, you could like completely take advantage of that and take her weapon, which I think is definitely like the most interesting between the two, like definitely like the best part of this series, of the season, or this episode, but you can completely miss out on it if you don't.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, and I didn't even get it. I had to like look it up, like what happens, and like because of that, now I want to go back and try that out because I think that is really interesting. And that goes to show, like, I think that's a problem, like, even to this day, that's a problem with Telltale, how they write these different endings to these certain sequences, where some of them are, like, really, really great, depending on what you choose, but the opposite side of that is, like, it just falls really flat. Like, I won't go into specifics, but there's a bit in, like, I think it's, like, the third episode of the latest Walking Dead, where if you do something, make a certain number of right decisions, you get a much better ending, like a much better final moment than you would if you did like all these other things. And I went with like all the other things. And when it ended, I was just like, what the hell was that? That was so stupid. And then I saw like what happens when you don't choose that. You go with the other choices, and I'm like, that's much better. Why can't these two choices even out into something much more satisfactory when it comes to these like split decision things? Because like like Lodobot throwing Athena halfway, like, yeah, it's good for a laugh or two, but it's like it's definitely not as satisfactory as Athena having to stop right there, dead in her tracks because her girlfriend is there. Like,
well, see, but I think that's a good thing though, because I mean that's evidence of them, actually having a meaningful, in a certain sense, meaningful choice, because they're closing off an entire scene that's very different, that, plays out very differently. And that's exactly what I want them to do. I think they should have closed narratives. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, like, the one scene isn't as good, but it's still better to me than, putting in a dumb contrivance and funneling you into one thing.
I don't know, like, if that forced contrivance is actually, like, really great, like, if I really like it, I don't mind much as, like, to the multiple, like, it, like, make it all multiple conclusions equally good, in my opinion. Like, I'd rather have that trade-off of, like, one great contrivance. Right,
but you can't, like, regulate that. I mean, because, that's so subjective, you know what I mean? I get that you'll be fine with it if you like it, but like if someone else doesn't like it, then they won't be as fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to. I don't know. I could see somebody just liking the funny moment of Loaderbot tossing her across versus the heavier moment of the other scene. Like it's hard. It's hard to. Again, it's so subjective that it's hard to say. That they're not trying to do that, I guess.
Well, I guess like the thing is, like, for me is like I can't personally speak for other people. I can just speak for just myself. But like myself, it's like I don't like one conclusion to this action scene, and I think it's vastly inferior to this other conclusion of this action scene, where like even in the way it goes, it's just kind of like a Deus Ex Machina, where Loaderbot appears, it's like da da da, and they're gone.
Yeah,
it's like, okay,
that's true.
It cuts it a little short. Like, I would have preferred something like Loaderbot, like Athena holding her own against Loaderbot, rather than going for like a quick joke where like Loaderbot grabs her and just throws her. It's like, it's like, that's not fun. It's funny, I guess. It's just not satisfactory to me.
Sure.
And that does bring up an interesting point with like the entirety of Telltale, where it's like how many choices are you going to have? Like that's that tricky balance that they do, where it's like, is one great contrivance worth the risk of like putting off a certain sect of people, or having like 3 or 4 completely different options, but they're of like mixed quality. It brings up an interesting, like, definitely, as you mentioned, subjective debate about this. But I think personally, I would rather have like one great contrivance than like these multiple different things. Like one of my least favorite things about a lot of these like open world, open choose your own adventure kind of thing is like the final point most of the time is like completely this mixed variety of different endings. And it's like it reminds me of a lot of like the ending to actually I can take two games from the same series, like BioShock and BioShock Infinite, or like BioShock has like 3 different endings, but only one of them is actually like narratively satisfying. 2 of them are basically the same, and they're both really disappointing. Well, the whole last 2 hours of it is disappointing. But then you get like BioShock Infinite, which teases like this, like they even said initially when they were first marketing it that it's like you will have all these multiple different endings, but then you come to realize that they don't. Like years after it comes out, it's like they don't, and it has like one like fucking spectacular ending. And I think that I'd rather have that trade-off of like one great thing than like multiple different endings. And I think that brings up my point with The Walking Dead as well, where season 1 really it's like one ending: Lee dies, Clementine lives. That's the ending. Like you are leaving Lee to die either by the infection or by you shooting him in the head. That's what you do. And then you go to The Walking Dead season 2 and even season 3 where you have multiple different endings, but they're all of like mixed quality, at least in my opinion they are. But it's like I'd still rather have that. It's a debate that I've kind of been going through in my head, definitely like finishing up this latest season of Walking Dead. But like talking about Borderlands now with this like one specific action scene, it's like blown this whole it's put this in perspective for me. Where
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I've just had to go on that little tirade.
But I mean, I get what you're saying, but like for me, it's just sort of like, I mean, that's kind of the decision you have to make if you're gonna make a choice-based game, you know, like there's a good. I mean, I think it should have, you know, multiple options, and realistically, there's really no like way to standardize the quality of those. You know what I mean? Like certain things will be more satisfying than others, and whatever. And I think that's just kind of the price you have to pay for, you know, setting off to make a choice-based game. But I still think that ultimately is far, far preferable to the opposite, which is just, well, we like this one ending, so we're going to kind of make everything lead to that.
Well, I think with, like, not necessarily there is a way to standardize it, but there is a way to pace. Let's go with, like the magic number 3, like 3 different endings. There is a way to pace all 3 different endings where they could all be narratively satisfying, like from like what you're presenting in this series. Like if you have like 3 different endings and one of them is like it cuts off like so abruptly, it's like that to me is not like if it just stops. Like I would hate that.
You know, and that's fair because I mean I use this example a lot, but like if you look at Mass Effect 3, I mean all those endings suck. Yeah. But if you know when they went back and redid it when they added like the DLC, there's an option now where if you just like shoot the Star Child, the game literally just like ends and everybody dies right there, and it's complete. It's just it's not an ending, and that is just like a half-assed sort of slap in the face, you know.
It's a really lazy way to address the complaints, like one of like the biggest,
a really backhanded way to address the complaints.
Where it's like well, fuck you, you want to shoot the Star Child, game over.
Exactly.
Fuck you.
Don't like the endings we made? Well, suck on this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the big example of like how you can do this properly is something like, again, I'll bring up The Witcher 3, where like The Witcher 3 has like 3 different main endings, but there's like I guess in the most broad terms, there's like the good ending, the bad ending, and the bittersweet ending. But I think all 3 of them are paced out satisfyingly because of what your choices were throughout like the final like third of the game. Like the good ending, it's like, you know, all the happiness, the nice things happen, and you get that final exclamation point where it's like, wow, that was such a good ending because I made all the right decisions. That's good. And then you get the bittersweet ending, and it makes it, you know, sad and but hopeful, but they not like drag it on, but they stretch it out where it feels like an actual like a rightful conclusion to the series. Bad ending is like they pacing out again where it's like it's like the bad things that you've done and then all like the pain and suffering that comes after that. It's not like oh, you fucked up, bam, game over. It's more like it leaves it more like dark and ambiguous as to what happens, and it's like that I think that is like the ideal answer in my opinion, but the way Telltale does it, I think it's like a mixed bag with a lot of these, like the ways that they can like play out in these little like micro moments and the ending of like each season, or endings of each seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I feel like it's a debate that there's really no way to. It's never going to end. You know, like
No.
It's a double-edged sword. I really feel like either way you do it, there's probably going to be some elements of what you're doing that's not completely satisfying. Unless like your game is just lightning in a bottle, perfect fucking writing in every possible facet. But I mean, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I mean, there's The Last of Us, which
Oh, fuck you.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Now, with choices, there really weren't a lot of like big ones that really felt heavy to me. And I guess I got to pinpoint that I do not like this episode as much as I used to. I still really like it, but I used to think it was like really great, but I still really like it. But I think the problems with, again, depending on what you choose, but it's like I have to go with this version of what I played for my updated opinion, and what I played was just, really good. I liked it a lot. Not great, like the last time.
Yeah, I there's not really much opportunity in this episode, I guess, for heavy choices. And this is something I don't really understand with like choice-based games right now, where I don't really understand why they're not taking advantage of it. Like, why are you not giving me more options to have big decisions? What's the reason? What's the rationale for this? Like, I like playing playing Mass Effect Andromeda. There are so many opportunities where like you could make me do, give me a big moral decision here, but almost invariably they never do. It's just like nothing. They just choose like these pointless little nothing choices, and I'm just like, what? Why? Like, why are you not going bigger? What's to lose? What are you going to possibly lose by, doing something exciting? I don't understand it. What's holding these people back? I don't get it.
Well, what's a specific example of what?
Okay,
like from this episode.
Well, I mean, in this episode, fuck. I don't know. Well, giving me the choice to kill Vasquez is one. I don't know. I mean, I'm more just thinking of like other stuff now, but I guess in this episode they kind of it's very much a middle connecting piece, and there really isn't a lot of opportunity. I guess what I was speaking to more was like a bigger problem with a lot of choice-based games now, where I just feel like I hardly ever get to do much of anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you make choices, but they're not the sort of like dramatic life and death choices that they should be. Like, I mean, you look at like again, like the first Mass Effect, and that choice where you have to choose between like Ashley and Kaidan. I mean, that's a real like moment, and every player is going to have to make that decision, and one person is going to die either way every single time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why are there so few choices like that in other games since then? I don't get it.
Complacency, I think.
It just seems dumb. Like, what's stopping you? I feel like there's no logical reason for it,
Maybe they feel like you don't need those like big decisions in all your episodes. Like,
but I mean, I kind of feel like they're almost never there in any episodes in most of these at this point. You know what I mean? Like, there are some big moments like that in like the first Walking Dead season.
Yeah.
And it feels like they start kind of shying away from that in later Telltale things. I don't get the reasoning for it.
Yeah. It's, especially with like Tales from the Borderlands, I think the problem is like, even though I do enjoy the humor, I do appreciate its goofiness, I think because it is like a lighter tone than like Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and all that, it's like they're almost like they don't want to push that inherent darkness too much throughout this series. Especially like with the way, if you want to play Reese to be like more of an asshole or a psychopath, it's like they don't give you enough choices to do that, or they don't give you enough, not necessarily like to change who you are, but to determine the lives of others. Like whenever something happens to other people, it's almost like it's gonna happen eventually. It's like a Sarah situation from season 2 of The Walking Dead, where it's like, oh, you could choose to save her in this one moment, but she's gonna like fall off the bridge and get her head cracked open anyway and die. It's like it doesn't matter. They're predestined to die, which sucks, and I always hate those options.
I mean, yeah, I get right. I feel like we're right back to that argument again. It's like, if everything is just, if it's predestined, no matter what you do, is that going to take you out of it? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess looking at the first Mass Effect, like, does it take something out of it that you know one way or another one of those characters is destined to die? Like, I don't think so. And I think the big reason is because you have agency over which one is going to die. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's a choice that you're put into, and the game makes it clear as to, you know, why there is no other alternative.
Sure.
You know, one, like, there's no choice. You don't have time to save both people, so you have to make the call right now, or, you know, they're both going to die.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Why not put more like dramatic and, you know, kind of nail biting decision making like that in these other games? You know?
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. It just, I'm so surprised, because I remember like when I first played Mass Effect and Walking Dead and the first season of Walking Dead, I was so like high on this like this sort of new cinematic involving choice-based game. You know, not, I mean, obviously RPGs have been around forever, but like these games are taking them to a new level of like polish and immersion, and you know, but. And I was like, you know, I was like, man, this is the future. Every game is going to go down this route. Eventually, we're going to have like, I was really convinced that like everything, even like first-person shooters and stuff, are going to, you know, introduce at least some elements of choice. Like, I still think like it would be amazing. I don't understand why Call of Duty doesn't do that. Like, even just in small ways, why not just put in little, you know, you have to make a decision in the moment, you know? I mean, those campaigns are already so, you know, heavy on character and drama anyway. Why not? And there are like other games that came out that sort of cemented that, like Spec Ops: The Line is a cool game that, yeah, that not a lot of people talk about now. But yeah, I just kind of feel like it hasn't happened. Like, I've been just waiting and waiting and waiting for ever since, like 10 years now. I feel like it's still not really happening. I don't know. I don't understand why it's not a more popular concept.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Anyway, Tales from the Borderlands.
Yeah. It's really all I can think of for this episode.
Yeah, there's not a lot. Like, I feel like we get more sequences with sort of like pointless currency and that sequence where you're like scanning for the power boxes, like, oh my God. That was so tedious.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's what I mean. It's like, so that's the kind of gameplay we get instead of like this sort of, you know, narrative stuff. Why would they think that's the interesting route? I don't get it.
I don't know. I still really like this episode, though.
Yeah,
even with everything that happens, I still really, really like it. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wish I could agree, but at this point, I officially do not like this episode.
So I assume that this isn't in your top 5.
Oh, no, definitely not.
It's, as much as I do like this episode, it's not in my top 5 either. So
So yeah, I guess everything rankings are unchanged.
Yeah. I don't know if they will change for me until like the finale. I don't know.
I guarantee you they won't change for me with the finale.
All right. I think we're good to wrap it up at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about everything.
Jordan, where can people find you?
I am at @5th_opinion on Twitter.
And I'm at Razorblade Bingo on YouTube. And we also have a Twitter at a Telltale Pod, capital A, capital T, capital P. And next time will be the 3rd episode of Tales from the Borderlands.
Yes.
Which I'm very much looking forward to because it has probably my favorite character in the season.
Interesting. It's at the... Oh, I won't spoil it, but yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next time. Bye. Oh, shit.